It is Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. It was very fun. Get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. I couldn't really tell you what we were doing right off the bat here. I have to think about it a moment. Apparently I got whacked in the back of the dome. And it's like right behind my left ear. And I don't know if it was like an elbow or somebody's head or somebody's knee. It's kind of painful, you know. Anyway, as far as what we covered today, we covered this one little leg lock thing, and I'm not going to reveal it on this show. I don't want to get too in depth of it because honestly, it's one of those moves that if you're in competition and you needed like that ace in the hole, you know, something that you knew that you could surprise your opponent with, you want to kind of keep it up there in that sleeve, you know. You wouldn't want to be mapping it out for people and letting them know exactly how you'd be playing them, right? Well, that's why I'm not going to let you know this one. But I had a lot of trouble with it, and I still do. So, you know, it's one of those things where you definitely have to get your feet in the right position to get the right pressure. But I'm still having a little bit of difficulty with that. It didn't help that my opponent, or my teammate rather, did not have a gi top, and of course, part of it is associated directly with the gi because it's one of those competition moves, you know. I suppose you probably could work it into a self-defense situation, but if you were in that kind of situation, you probably wouldn't want to be that close to your opponent. You probably want to be trying to separate it out, you know, keep your feet up on their hips and their shoulders or something like that, you know, kind of keep them out of the range of being able to hit you in the dome. But yeah, so we did some sparring at the end. We had a nice little black belt round of sparring, 10 minutes, and all it was really testing your ability to last 10 minutes. And I think I did pretty good. It really wasn't until like the last, I want to say, maybe minute and a half, 2 minutes, where I really started getting to where I was breathing hard. You know, my opponent, on the other hand, I was kind of worried about him, really. Because, I mean, he was exerting all of this energy, you know, trying to get out of my guard, get me in a better position or whatever. And I'm pretty good at stopping the action. You know, I can get a half guard and a lockdown on it, and you're probably not going to get out of it. Or if you do, it's because you're really good at getting at a half guard. You know, I mean, you've got that tailored into your game already. But I'm pretty good at getting and maintaining guard. Like I said, I've got my glitches in my game just like anybody else, and I like them being tested. But for this particular gentleman, I managed to keep my distancing in mind, and I managed it pretty well, but I think I could have done much better. Toward the end, I was working around toward a arm triangle, and I had gotten him really close to an arm triangle once before, and he did not recognize the setup for it until it was too late. But I used that for yet another setup where I used it to pull myself back up and onto side control, and I ended up finishing him off there with an Americana. And it was kind of a weird position that I had his arm in, where I had it tucked in really tight to his body, and so his only position that he could do is straighten his arm out to get it away, and maybe, you know, do a whizzer or get into an underhook depending on where his arm came out of. And knowing that, I kept my arm kind of over his, so that when he extended upward, I would catch him right at about a 90-degree angle with my bicep. And I used that as a setup to anchor the arm down. And like I said, I had it kind of pinched like that, and so then I just grabbed his wrist and locked it down into that Americana. And Yeah, I don't think he was anticipating that one either. So apparently I'm getting a little sneakier, that I can get one by on somebody, but going as slow as I was really trying to watch my pace and pay attention to how much strength I was exerting, and so I tried to keep myself in a low effort mode pretty much the entire time. And it hurt me in some positions where I should have been a little more aggressive in adjusting my position on my opponent. But at the same time, I felt like I did a really good job, for the most part, in keeping my heart rate low, keeping my breathing low, and keeping my exertion as low as I could. And every time that I would get him into fucking half guard, I'd hear him say, "Oh, shit." So it was a little fun, I kept trying to sweep him, and he was keeping his base really, really well. And at one point, I managed to get on top of him, and I lost that, of course. But I didn't lose him out of my guard, and that's kind of what set up where I was trying to go from there. I still have to work on my win though, because when it was time for me to be attacking, I didn't have as much energy as I wanted to, or I would have needed to in order to be able to finish him off easier. Because by the time I did get him to that point, he was pretty much Dunsky. When I got him by that Americana, he was breathing so hard that he really couldn't muster a defense. And so, I took it easy. I didn't just, wrench it on him or anything like that, go all Valley Tudo on him and shit. No, I took it easy, and as soon as I let go from that one, I started setting up for another one, and I almost had him with a fucking collar choke, but I had my position adjusted incorrectly. And one of the things that I tend to get caught up in is, if I've got my arms active, that I can be disengaging with my legs to try and reposition them and get me in a better position to either maintain my current position or move forward into a more positive position, or a more dominant position. And so, I was experiencing a little bit of that today, where I was just a teeny tiny behind him, and so where my sweeps would have worked well, I was either a little bit behind him or a little bit ahead of him, and he was able to feel my pressure change, and I didn't have myself in the right position to be able to get off the sweep that I was trying to do. And so, I don't know, it's stuff I'm definitely going to have to work on, but that's why we do those long rounds, kind of work out that spontaneous shit really quick, and start getting into a more adaptive, more innovative kind of mindset, But anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And we're going to go with some body count to begin with. I want to kind of expand it. Here we go. Get a Job. First Dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Soundgarden with Rusty Cage. So, as far as what else we're going to get into today, I actually took a little bit of time and went scouring about the net, and of course a Twitter feed or two. And I happened to come across this one thing, and I don't typically go on to USAWatchdog.com, but I do like Greg Hunter's work. He's pretty sound mind when it comes to politics and finance in particular. And so I got this thing here. It's and just to warn you, he does go a little parabolic on his or hyperbolic, hyperbolic on his vocabulary, but we give him credit. This is just his style. So this is by Greg Hunter. So yes, penis. Maniac money printers gone mad fighting China virus, and this is by Michael Pinto. So I guess maybe an interview. And so yeah, this is on USAWatchdog.com. Money managers Michael Penno has long warned about China's rapid accumulation of debt that now stands at $40 trillion. The coronavirus coming out of China is only going to make China's problem far worse, Penno explains. Quote, China has the biggest amassing of debt the world has ever seen and at the fastest pace never before matched in history. This is a country teetering on meltdown. Multinational companies like Nike, Apple, and Google, major U.S. corporations, are saying we cannot give accurate readings for what's going to happen in all of 2020, and yet Wall Street doesn't care. It is because China, the United States, and all other central banks are printing money like never before, trying to modify the effects of the virus. We are going to have a global recession in the first quarter of 2020. U.S. GDP will be lucky if it gets to 1%. Singapore is warning about a recession. Australia is warning about a recession. The Eurozone, which is China's biggest customer, is going to be in a recession. Nobody cares because the maniac money printers have gone mad. China is a country with $40 trillion in destabilizing debt. David Stockman calls it the Red Ponzi, and I could not agree more. When you're taking a country that is already decelerating rapidly from before, their stock market has already been cut in half, and then you throw in this coronavirus, which has virtually shut down the entire nation. It's the second biggest economy on planet Earth, and Wall Street doesn't care. Penno also points out, quote, if they keep aggressively printing all of this money, and clearly Jerome Powell, Fed head, told you they are going to print money aggressively and never let interest rates rise. And if the next recession appears, quote, we are going to aggressively go back into quantitative easing. This is a quote. How much longer can the market still deem the fiat currencies to hold their purchasing power? Eventually, that bubble, the faith in the purchasing power of all fiat currencies, is going to explode. That's when you see gold become untethered. Penno also says, quote, central banks are impotent because the only thing they can do is print more money. You can't tell a market that has lost faith in currencies and has lost faith in the ability to service debt that you're going to solve the problem by creating more inflation. That is coming. That's going to be the real problem, and that is going to be the real threat. In closing, Penno predicts, quote, the economic data for the next few weeks, at a minimum, is going to be rancid beyond belief. I would be very cautious in thinking that the trading algorithms and the tape reading machines on Wall Street are going to ignore all of that, especially if this virus starts to spread to other nations in a more significant manner. Then it's going to be game over. Penno likes gold and silver and recommends them in every portfolio. Yeah, so... oh, yeah, here we go. Penno is overweight gold between the two metals. Penno is on the record here predicting a global recession in 2020 if China virus does not get fixed soon. I think that's a little bit of fear-mongering, honestly. I don't really think this coronavirus is what people think it is. You know, I think that, and this is just my conspiratorial mind going bonkers here, but I think that it's just as likely that the coronavirus is being used as a cover for some social modification. Meaning that there are persons out there that maybe hold perspectives that are not in line with the master control of their government there, and they're adjusting the pieces on the chess what do you call it, the chessboard, basically. And so, you know, they're just silently using it as a cover to do certain things, and you know, whether that be harvesting organs for quote unquote organ donorship, or simply political dissidents being silenced before they become a problem. But they have the ability to lock things down because people will let them, and they don't really have a means to resist, and they have only their government and their media to believe on things. So, but that's just my ultra conspiratorial mind. Please take precautions. You see somebody sneezing or coughing, don't go getting in their fucking airspace. They could just as easily be spreading something. If not this, then at least potentially the flu, which actually kills thousands of people every fucking year. So, watch yourself. Take care of your body. Watch your health. Don't be staying up all night and not drinking any water and trying to stay running on caffeine and Adderall and shit like that. That just fucks up your immune system, and in the long term it'll cost you worse. But in any case, so I don't know what to think of this coronavirus thing. I think it's, again, take your general health precautions, treat it like it's fucking flu season. Don't be gripping on knobs and door handles and shit that you don't have to. If you can, use an elbow. Just treat it like, hey, you're in a semi-contaminated zone now. This is the time of year when that shit's going around, and yeah, you got to take care of yourself. But that's how you neutralize the transmission of this shit. Like washing your hands while you're preparing food, when you go to the bathroom. I mean, really simple things like that. That's probably ended more contagions that would have taken us down by now with our population density. The cleanliness quotient, the fact that we do bathe as much as we do in the United States, I believe that's probably the biggest reason why we haven't seen like a major outbreak of the bubonic plague or the black plague or some shit like that, is because these simple things, washing your hands when you're done in the restroom, showering a few times a week at least, these things alone modify your hygiene level to an extent, or improve it to an extent, that you can get over a lot of the things that are around you. You're relieving your immune system when you're doing that. You're not taxing it as much as it would otherwise be. And that's probably been the biggest driver behind the extension in life of humans. The extension of the human lifespan has been simply cutting back on the taxation that we experience due to a toxic environment. Whether that be that we get to spend time indoors, and so we're not exposed to a lot of the hazards outdoors, like shit falling on us or shit attacking us or whatever. And so that threat quotient is down. But more importantly, again, the cleanliness, the fact that we are as clean as we are, allows us to remain indoors for a longer period of time, which again lowers the possibility of outside threats. It's very, very simple math. Anyway, continuing on, I got a few responses to this. Let's hear. William Stanley says, Mr. Hunter, it's looking grim. We've got to kick our preparing into high gear. Yeah. I think that's a little bit of panic. Definitely watch out for yourself. If you have the ability to get yourself a few days worth of food, at least like rice or some shit like that, do it. Why not? I mean, it's better to have and not need than to need and not have. Just, I mean, I heard about something with regard to this coronavirus because of the restrictions that they've had on shipping of goods and stuff into China and Hong Kong, that this one Hong Kong family scrambled a whole bunch of money together and bought about $200 worth of toilet paper. And I guess they've been using that as like money because it's so rare there. You can't go to a store and just buy this shit right now. They had to buy it on Amazon. But at least it got there, and it actually got there before the stores could get restocked. So, I mean, really, what does that tell you about all of this? It tells me that a lot of the restriction on travel and whatnot, it's optional. You know, I mean, if they're allowing Amazon to ship stuff around, then either Amazon has, such a back stock of stuff that they can just pick it off a shelf and run with it, or they're getting it in from the outside, meaning that their travel is going relatively unfettered by comparison to the rest of everybody else. Leads you to wonder, right? Anyway, moving on. Got this next one here. It's on Cointelegraph.com. And this is by Benjamin Pires. So yes, penis. EU securities regulator flags risks of big tech's entry into financial services, i.e. Facebook, Libra. The European Union securities regulator has put out a report warning of the risks of big tech's entrance into finance. Quote, the high level of market concentration typically observed in big tech may get carried into financial services with potentially adverse impacts on consumer prices and financial stability, the European Securities and Market Authority, or ESMA, said of big tech companies entering finance as part of its 2020 Trends, Risks, and Vulnerabilities report released on February 19th. The report did, however, also mention a few positives of big tech in finance. Quote, prospective benefits include greater household participation in capital markets, greater transparency, and increased financial inclusion, the ESMA text reads. And that's also going to cut down on taxation too. And not because people won't want taxes, other than, I don't know. I think the reason why most people say yes to taxing other people is because they don't have enough money. Well, one of the ways to resolve that is to sell something or provide a service on your own. And that market, that ability for anybody out there has been kind of constrained by regulatory frameworks that are all based upon fiat currencies. See, if you want to give people massages, you need a license. And why do you need a license? Well, because there's some sort of liability involved, supposedly. I mean, if you're some sort of creeper or some shit like that, that's like criminal prosecutable or some shit like that. But anyway, point being that all of that is regulated in US dollars. And when the incentive to simply do business is higher than your risk tolerance with regard to being busted, and people will engage in it. That's all there is to it. And if they can do it in a way that is not necessarily tracked, or at least is obfuscatable, as cryptocurrencies are, they'll probably do that. And so, the idea of creating greater household participation in capital markets, I would say probably just consumer markets alone. And that will increase participation in capital markets. But what I think is more important about cryptocurrencies in this is that because it is not restrained within a certain geographical location and whatnot, that the economic activity that it allows for, like you make money doing a service or whatever online, but you make it in cryptocurrencies. Then you liquidate those cryptocurrencies and receive them as fiat currencies via a card, via a cryptocurrency ATM, via a service online, via your bank, whatever, right? But you bring it to US dollars or, euros or whatever, right? But you bring it into your local currency, that monetary value, and then you spend those funds into your local economy. That increases economic activity. That means that people that are actually paying their income taxes, like good businesses and individuals, have more because they're earning more. And so the taxes that they pay are more. And all the little taxes that you accrue, excise taxes on certain goods and commodities, other taxes that you have on goods or commodities, such as alcohol taxes or gas taxes, tobacco taxes, all of these go up because people can afford the shit because they have money. This is a much better way to try and fund shit than stuffing your hand in people's wallets or into their cryptocurrency accounts or into their bank accounts and seizing the funds. And so I think that, yes, increased financial inclusion, yes, Facebook coin could do that, but probably not any more than any other cryptocurrency out there. Continuing on, Silicon Valley takes on finance. Big tech companies include the likes of Amazon, eBay, and others that are focused primarily on services outside what has been traditionally been considered finance. But that has been changing. Social media giant Facebook looked to pry its way into finance in June 2019 when the social media company published plans for its Libra digital asset. Shortly after Facebook's announcement, however, U.S. regulators stepped in, seeing the potential risks involved and covering the project with red tape. Prior to Facebook's Libra announcement, the social media entity's co-founder Mark Zuckerberg called for additional regulation on big tech in March 2019. Continuing his quest, traveling to two EU nations, Zuckerberg is once again pushing for additional guidelines from regulators regarding data usage, privacy, and the like, CNN reported on February 19th. Big tech, big responsibility. ESMA's report explained that such tech giants are beginning to enter the financial space, launching payment solutions and other offerings similar to Libra, which could mean added risk for online customers. No shit. Quote, in many cases, these companies can also use proprietary data generated through other services, such as social media, to tailor their offerings to customer preferences, the report said, including that such companies possess the power to overtake a big chunk of the financial services industry. Such involvement, however, comes with a massive risk. Quote, given the vast amount of sensitive consumer information they handle and the scale of their existing operations, many of which are interconnected with financial markets, their entry into finance also poses distinct risks to markets and consumers, the report said. Cointelegraph reached out to ESMA for clarification, but received no response as of press time. The article will be updated accordingly should a response come in. Yeah, I wouldn't expect a response, honestly. Ooh, that's a good one. We might actually, probably going to cover this one too. But anyway, so yeah, back to this article here. I don't think that Libra is actually going to be released, and I don't really believe that there will be any additional regulatory clarity, because again, I am sure that all of the regulators are looking at this in the mouth and they're saying, there's no way we can actually shut this shit down. We could try, but it's pretty likely that people are going to continue to do this, and the harder we push, the more flagrant they're going to get about it. Like in China or in Russia. I read a report on this show. I think we actually covered it on this show. I'm not 100% sure. But some guy in Russia was working at a nuclear facility, and he was fucking mining on site. He brought his miners to work and set them all up at work and was basically getting his electricity for free right from the source. This is predictable. This is going to happen. We saw this the same kind of expression in Venezuela, where they didn't make mining 100% quote-unquote illegal per se, but they did have kind of an implicit warning not to do it, and they enforced it with actual physical seizure of mining equipment. But what happened then? The fucking cops took the mining equipment home, from the evidence locker, of course, and set it up at home, and were fucking mining at home. This is predictable. The incentive is there. You've got virtually free electricity. All you really need is fucking hardware then, and you got to cool it, of course, and you got to manage your noise level for the sake of your neighbors. But the fact of the matter is, it's virtually free, untraceable money in an environment such as Venezuela. So, after a while, they kind of gave up on it. But the fact remains that this effect expresses itself everywhere where this technology is actually challenged, where the public's participation in it is somehow limited. We just see these expressions pop up, where there's, a whole bunch of kids are getting their electricity free in their dormitory. So what are they doing? They're fucking mining Ethereum on the grid of their dormitory. And all of a sudden the dorm is experiencing this massive spike in their energy bill, or electricity bill rather. And, they're like, why are we using 6 times as much electricity as we used to? Well, it's because some kid on the 3rd floor is burning away the night with 3 or 4 S9s in a corner somewhere. Again, these are normal expressions. And we only see these perversions of trust where we see greater limitation on participation in cryptocurrencies. Where places like, say, Wyoming or New York get all snooty and say, oh, we're going to regulate this space. All they managed to do is criminalize the previously legitimate actors that were operating within their state, because they can't afford the licensure, they can't afford the monitoring, they can't afford the storage, they can't afford to be compliant according to the rules that New York lays out, or has laid out in BitLicense. And this isn't an accident. New York is basically a hub, like a global hub of finance. It's the location of the central bank of central banks. And that's the New York Fed. And so, there was a court case recently where they were challenging the U.S. Treasury's ability to dictate who gets to be a bank. This is a corporate entity. It's not a department of the federal government dictating to the U.S. Treasury, hey, you can't dictate who can be a bank. You can't license people as banks, even charter banks. You can't do it. That's our job. We're the only people that know how to review the solvency of a bank, or a candidate to be a bank, or a financial service. And they're wrong. It has been their mismanagement. It has been their mischaracterization of who should be legitimate players within the market that has caused every financial disaster for the previous, probably century now. And we're suffering it more and more because the monetary value contained in a US dollar, a single US dollar, is going down by the day. And it's because of the rabid printing, as we covered from that previous article, by the Federal Reserve, trying to keep a global economy afloat on debt that they're printing out of nowhere. And this is going to be challenged at some point or another. that people are going to be saying, hey, you know what? There's so many of these US dollars. Really, I want way more of them for a gallon of gasoline. I want way more of them for these other things because I cannot afford the tax burden that I'm currently experiencing on what I'm making. My profit margin isn't high enough to cover ops. And I can't get anybody to loan me any money because the banks want to hold on to as much of that monetary value as they possibly can. So they're dedicating it to other things instead of me. Again, it is this kind of disclusion, where the bank is the arbiter of who gets the money because they're the lender, right? And so rightfully, they should be able to dictate who they give the money to. But their criterion for who should get the money isn't necessarily matched up with the greatest benefit to the market at large. And it's set according to their own bias. So it's by default not going to entertain everybody else's interests. So, again, I think of Bitcoin as a symptom of this, where people have recognized this loss of agency and they're saying, hey, you know what? We want greater voice within the global economy, at least the national economy, if just not my local economy. And I need a tool that allows me to express that better than these US dollars or other fiat currencies or national currencies that are depreciating in my fucking wallet. And it's when it comes down to it, believe it or not, proof of work coins mined by kids in dormitories and in their mom's basement and whatnot have a greater level of legitimacy tied to them than an IOU issued by a central bank. And that's really not the way the situation should be. But that's the situation we're being presented with. And I think that ultimately it is according to someone's design, or at least it was according to somebody's design or hope, that we would make this transition into a digital economy only. But these people don't live in places where it snows. You lose electricity in such an economy, you're not going to fucking eat. Because nobody can account for how much money you actually have. I mean, unless, of course, your cell towers are somehow powered that, when the rest of the grid goes down, that they have electricity. It's not very likely. One good storm can fuck up your entire day like that. I mean, I know. I spent, I think it was like, 4.5 days without any electricity last year. And I mean, that was last year. We're not talking about last decade. We're talking about last year. I lost all access to the internet, and I did not even have lights on. So, I mean, you want to shift us over to a completely digital economy in a world where that is a reality that we face? I don't think so. I mean, you're talking about the crippling of an economy of an area that consisted of some 200,000 people. It's just like suddenly dead. If they didn't have US dollars and coins to circulate, just to buy food and whatnot, we wouldn't fucking have made it. I mean, we would have gone full Donner Party and have been eating everybody. But again, these are the thoughts of people that don't live in such situations, face. Or at least they don't think they do. A lot of them live on coasts and whatnot, and there have been enough recent losses of coastline in certain areas that I've observed, at least, to make me think that those people that are living on their nice cliffside house, or whatever, it's got that nice view over the ocean, that that house is probably going to be under the ocean soon. That's just my feeling, though. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And I got something playing on here, Sepultura. And I really like this song, but I hardly ever play it. And so here it is. It's Sepultura, Look Away. If I can get this thing to play. It looks like my program hung up for a moment. Yeah. Let me rewind this bad boy. Come on. There we go. Look Away by Sepultura. Here on Coin Metal. And that was 12-Foot Ninja with Point of View. As in the point of view. Hold on a moment. Oh man. There we go. And so, next I want to get onto this thing. I wanted to get into this thing too. I don't know. We'll save this one for later. Because I already read the other article attached to it, and so let's get into this other thing here. And it is also on Cointelegraph. And this is by Gareth Jenkinson. This is approximately 11 hours ago. Let me refresh it, make sure. 16 hours ago. Poloniex last resort. Trade reversals necessary to safeguard trader funds. And so yes, penis. Cryptocurrency exchange Poloniex remains confident that it has identified and fixed an error that caused a number of erroneous trades on the platform earlier this week. On February 12th, Poloniex made a decision to reverse all trades that took place during an 11-minute period due to a software error. The bug caused trades to be executed and accounted for inaccurately. The platform's automated audit system picked up the affected trades and halted all withdrawals. Following that, the Poloniex team effectively reversed every trade that had been executed as a result of the bug. The main reason for the reversal, which copped criticism from all corners of the cryptocurrency community, was due to the sheer number of trades that were affected by the software error. Cointelegraph reached out to Poloniex for an official comment on the situation, as well as the users, to find out how they were affected. Quote, trade reversal, quote, last resort. And Ariane Daniel, a product market manager at Poloniex, told Cointelegraph that the exchange was able to identify and correct the issue that had caused the error once the platform had shut down for maintenance. While all the trades during the affected period were completely reversed, Daniel explained that none of the affected traders lost any funds or holdings. Quote, no customers lost funds as a result of the error, as the error only occurred for customers who placed or executed an order with a client Tor ID set during the 11 minutes before we placed our site into maintenance mode. Only a very small percentage of our daily active traders were affected by the issue. The exchange maintains that it had explored all possible options to rectify the trading errors caused by the bug, and it had to turn to a, quote, last resort by reversing trades, according to Daniel. Quote, we understand how serious it is to reverse trades and view it as a last resort. Unfortunately, we had to turn to this for the first time, as the error affected too many trades to correct manually. It is difficult to ascertain what the best course of action would have been in a scenario like this in comparison with other cryptocurrency exchanges. Poloniex deemed the reversal to be the most appropriate course and Daniel says Poloniex' existing security system served its purpose. Quote, "Our priority is to safeguard customers' funds and provide the best experience possible. We have many best practices in place to act on this priority, including the audit that identified the issue and automatically froze withdrawals within 2 minutes of its beginning." Transparency applauded. This type of scenario is almost unheard of in conventional trading circles, and the cryptocurrency space is no different. Nevertheless, Poloniex appeared to act both swiftly and openly in the course of action it chose to take. Investment specialist and market analyst Matt Greenspan told Cointelegraph that circumstances of the event seemed to have necessitated Poloniex's actions. Quote, "It's certainly unconventional. I've never seen a platform have to resort to reversing trades before, and this definitely speaks to the severity of the error. The reversal of trades may have seemed to be an unorthodox solution to the error on Poloniex's platform, but Greenspan played down the talk of the move, setting a dangerous precedent for other trading platforms to follow, saying, quote, "It seems like this was a difficult decision for Poloniex to take, and I applaud them for their transparency in the way they resolved the issue." I don't know that I agree about that. Greenspan believes that the complex technical errors need to be met with forward-thinking solutions. With that in mind, the analyst believes that any solution that serves the best interests of clients is difficult to criticize. Quote, "In the technical world that we live in, and specifically in the field of online trading, things happen. Bugs and errors are a fact of life, and oftentimes trades can be affected. The difference between good platforms and bad ones is the way that they handle it." I believe that is true as well. In October 2019, Poloniex broke away from mobile payment giant Circle in order to better serve a global user base of traders. Circle had bought Poloniex for $400 million in February of 2018. Huh. That's weird. Let's check this breakaway thing. I hadn't heard about that. Huh. I remember they got acquired by Circle, which means I think it was either JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs. One of those two owns Circle. So by default, Poloniex was owned by Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, or both of them, I think. Maybe. Possibly. I don't know for sure, but you can actually look that up. Google it if you want. Anyway, this is on Cointelegraph.com, and it's a little bit older, but I think it's kind of relevant. This is by Helen Parts. Poloniex spins out from Circle to form new exchange not available in U.S. That's interesting. But no penis. United States-based exchange Poloniex is spinning out from Circle to form a new exchange that will not support trading for customers based in the U.S. New firm receives backing from Asian Investment Group. The new independent firm, called Polo Digital Assets, will free Poloniex from its parent company Circle, the firm said in an official announcement on October 18th. Per Poloniex, this will allow it to focus on the needs of global crypto traders with new features, assets, and services to boost its competitiveness in the market. Yeah, whatever, dude. In a separate blog post, Circle said that Polo received backing from an unspecified Asian investment group, i.e. Chinese. As part of the move, the firm plans to spend $100 million on the business during the next few years and will reduce all spot trading fees to 0% until the end of 2019, starting from October 21st. Leaving the U.S. market. However, the firm will have to sacrifice its U.S. market to be competitive globally, Poloniex wrote. According to the announcement, Polo digital assets will not be available for U.S. customers, and Circle will be shutting down operations for U.S.-based Poloniex clients. Starting on November 1st, 2019, U.S. customers will no longer be able to execute trades on the exchange. Once trading is ended, U.S. users will still be able to withdraw their assets through Circle until at least December 15, 2019, the firm said. Circle cuts several projects in September. As previously reported, Circle acquired Poloniex in February of 2018 for $400 million. In late September, Circle announced its decision to pause its weekly crypto market research product Circle Research following the termination of its payment app Circle Pay on September 13th. The firm claimed that it wanted to develop new financial products such as new wallet services and facilitate digital currency adoption through Poloniex. Okay, so that answers that question. I think it's a interesting turn of events. This is basically regulatory arbitrage, where Poloniex has found jurisdictions that it can work within, where it can no longer work within U.S. jurisdictions. And that's really sad. It really is. Because the fact of the matter is that the U.S. pretty much got this thing rolling. I mean, there was a time when the vast majority of the hashing power on any of the networks was coming from the United States. And that may still be true with some altcoins, but it is not currently true with regard to Bitcoin. As I believe it's like 60% of all the hashing power comes from there right now. But I wanted to shift gears because we referred to Bitcoin there. Sorry about that. I had to rehydrate a little bit. And this one, I noticed this on somebody's Twitter feed, and I think this is kind of important shit. Especially is because a lot of people envision that Bitcoin will be operating as some sort of Swift network, and that they're going to be able to stack all kinds of shit on top of the transactions that are occurring on the network. And I've long believed that this is not the case. That if it were to ever quote-unquote go into quote-unquote production, that we would be seeing a centralization of the services, or at least the service providers, with regard to Lightning Network and the similar second layer solution services. And so this one's on medium.com. Congestion attacks in payment channel networks. And this is by Ayelet Mizrahi. My apologies, ma'am, but no penis. And this is authored on February 17th by Ayelet Mizrahi and Aviv Zohar. In a new paper, we discuss a fundamental vulnerability that arises in payment channel networks as part of the construction of trustless multi-hop payments. We present two modes of attack. The first aims to lock as many high liquidity channels as possible for an extended period, and the second isolates hubs from the rest of the network. In this post, we present the evaluation of these attacks over the Lightning Network. We will examine the network's properties and different parameters set by the three main implementations of Lightning Network, and show how recent changes in default parameters agreed upon by Lightning devs made the attack easier to carry out. Our results show that it is possible to disrupt the Lightning Network by locking most of its liquidity using less than half of a Bitcoin. Payment channel networks are a second layer off-chain solution to the scalability problems of blockchains. Bitcoin's Lightning Network currently has more than 11,000 nodes and 35,000 channels, with a total capacity of around $9 million, about 880 BTC. The basic idea of the attack we explore was mentioned back in August of 2015 in a correspondence in a Lightning Dev list and in May 2017 as a Git issue in the Bolt. No full evaluation of the consequences of this attack was ever given, and its cost turned out to be extremely low. With less than half of a Bitcoin, the attacker can indefinitely lock up most of the network's channels. The attack. In order to paralyze the channels, the attacker opens channels with the source and target of a route, and requests many small payments through this path, exhausting the number of simultaneously open HTLCs. Each of the main implementations of Lightning limits the number of concurrent HTLCs differently. The attacker is both the source and destination of this payment and can severely delay the final execution of the payment, up to several days. The attacker can then rerun the attack once again and lock the same path for an additional period of time. We studied the main implementations of the Lightning Protocol. Here are the default values used for relevant parameters. Most nodes do use these defaults. See details in the paper, which we will probably cover. Most nodes on the network nowadays are actually LND nodes, and that says about 90%. And so let's see, maximum concurrent HTLCs for LND is 483. C Lightning, it's 30. Eclair is 30. And with Bolt, it's greater than 483. Let's see. Looks like a few of them are a bit lower. Lock time _max. Let's see, in LND it's 2016. C Lightning it's 2016. Eclair it's 2016. And Bolt it's greater than 5 times 10 to the 8th power. Interesting. Default parameters. The diagram below illustrates how a single payment is executed along the path. The attacker repeats this many times on each path until no more HLTCs are available. Well, let's see, it goes from V1 HTLC, and then gives us a times in there, and then V2 success mode, blah blah blah. I'm not going to read all of that information out. Maybe they'll enunciate it further below. We evaluate the consequence of running this massively on the entire Lightning Network. Attacking the entire network. When using a greedy algorithm in order to pick routes to paralyze as much liquidity as possible, we get the following results. The graph below shows what fraction of the total capacity currently locked in Lightning we managed to paralyze for 3 days at a time. Let's see, fraction of attacked capacity. Let's see here. The points for 0.2 is like 200 or 90 rather. 0.4 is 198. 0.7 is 490, and 0.9 is 1044 number of attack channels for fraction of attacked capacity. So almost 1% of the total capacity. It is possible to lock the network quite effectively for different periods of time. gives us streamlines, number of locked for a number of days, 1 through 6, and they're able to keep, let's see, at almost a Bitcoin, between 0.8 Bitcoin and 1 Bitcoin. They're able to tie up 1,400 nodes for a period of 6 days. Actually, they could execute it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 days. 1 through 6 days. That's interesting. So they can tie up to 1,400 channels with 1 Bitcoin for up to 6 days. That's pretty damning, really. The total cost of the attack is low. The costs are made up of 2 main factors: the cost of opening channels, non-refundable, and the cost of provisioning channels with liquidity. This money remains in the hands of the attacker. And let's see, for 0.3 Bitcoin, for fees, it's like, for a quarter of a Bitcoin in fees, they can keep up to, I guess it's showing 700 nodes, or network capacity locked by attack. Up to 700 Bitcoin can be locked up with 0.25 Bitcoin. That's a lot. Our results show that the attacker can paralyze 650 Bitcoin of liquidity in the Lightning Network for 3 days using less than a quarter of a Bitcoin. Holy shit. Attacking hubs. In order to disconnect a single node from the network for an extended period of time, the adversary connects to the victim node and paralyzes its adjacent channels. To do so, it makes multiple repeat payment requests over a path going back and forth through the victim's channels. This is surprisingly allowed in Lightning implementations. Let's see. Wait until one block before the HTC timeout or HTLC timeout, and then okay. And then it's actually attacking the node directly, which extends the attack to the adjacent nodes from there. Here are some prominent nodes and how much it would cost to attack. Let's see. Alias, ACINQ, percent of network liquidity, 6%. Nodes degree, 581. Attacker channels, 86. Blue Wallet is 4.8% of network liquidity. Network nodes degree is 303. Attacker channels 36. LNBIG is 3.6% of network liquidity. Nodes degree is 427. Attacker channels 48. Bit refill 3.3%. Nodes degree 145. Attacker channels 20. Lightning is 3%. Nodes degree 181. Attacker channels 25. And LNBIG 25 nodes is 47.3%, meaning they have 25 separate nodes, but it's one entity. And percentage of network liquidity is 47.3%. Nodes degree is 4,994, and attacker channels is 566. The last entry in the table relates to an isolation attack on all 25 nodes belonging to LNBIG, which hold 47.3% of all liquidity in Lightning. If you want to attack smaller nodes, the cost is usually proportional to their degree, but not exactly. And it's got a graph here, attacker channels required to isolate nodes of different degrees. Let's see, with 120 attacker channels, you can get up to 800 on the degree chart there. We note that the vulnerability is relatively hard to fix since it arises from 3 fundamental properties of off-chain payment networks: Number 1, payments are executed in a trustless manner. Using conditional payment contracts in the form of transactions with HTLCs that are exchanged between parties and are only sent to the blockchain if disputes arise. These contracts grow in size as more conditional payments are pending, so the number of pending payments is limited by transaction sizes that can be placed on the blockchain, meaning they're contained by the bound of the fee that was paid to establish the transaction. Number 2, expiration times are long. To allow nodes to recover their funds if a malicious partner closes a channel that is part of a pending payment, HTLC expiration times have been set to allow nodes sufficient time to appeal such closures. In Bitcoin's Lightning Network, due to lower expressiveness of its scripting language, HTLC expiration times accumulate over a length of the path, reaching up to 2016 blocks, which typically take the Bitcoin network 2 weeks to produce. The privacy of payments. Payment channel networks utilize onion routing that does not allow intermediate nodes on the path to recognize where payments originate and where they are going, allowing the attacker to act with impunity. Mitigation techniques. Recent changes to the defaults have in fact made our attack easier to carry out. LND changed their CLTV _expiry _delta default from 144 to 40 blocks on March 12, 2019, which allows chaining more nodes in each path without reaching a lock time _max limit. Additionally, a max lock time of 2016 max _CLTV was agreed upon by Lightning developers in the 2018 Adelaide meeting to set the Bolt 1.1 specs. This is an increase of previous values used in some implementations. Again, this allows for longer routes and longer expiration delays that make the attack more damaging and easier to carry out. Yeah, because it expands the fucking attack surface. Duh. Enforcing fast HTLC resolution. While HTLC expiration time allows nodes to remain secure and provide time to publish transactions to the network, we propose the addition of another timeout mechanism. Specifically, if the HTLC secrets are not propagated fast enough from one's neighbor, the channel with this neighbor should be closed. This mechanism is a way to disconnect misbehaving peers from the network in order to prevent them from repeating the attack many times at no cost. Reducing the route length. We suggest lowering the maximum allowed route length, currently 20 hops. The network graph is highly connected, and a smaller number of hops should still suffice. Paths between nodes in the network have an average of less than 3 hops, and that the network diameter setting... an average of less than 3 hops, and that the network diameter is roughly 6. There's another way to do that, and that's by increasing the minimum amount of Bitcoin that can be held on a node. But of course, that increases the threat to the amount on the node. Continuing on. Setting the number of max concurrent payments based on trust level and loop avoidance are 2 more ways to slightly mitigate the attack. Further work must be conducted in order to secure the network. Since the attack relies on fundamental mechanisms and payment channels, more consideration is warranted. For more, see the full paper, which we may just do right now. And, congestion attacks and payment channel networks. Let's see how long this thing is. It's about 12 pages. We may or may not be able to complete this whole thing. I don't know. Let me see something here. I don't know. I think that kind of covered a lot of the big concerns. Let's see this one response here. Scott Rose says, "Can you please post this article on read.cash as well so the Bitcoin Cash community can tip you BCH for your research? Thank you." That's funny. I don't think that this kind of research actually requires any kind of incentivization. I mean, considering the number of people that they wish to involve in the payment channel apparatus and the whole Lightning Network business, it's kind of like incumbent on people that intend to involve themselves in them to be reviewing this kind of information, because we're talking about your fucking money. Want to make sure that you're not just zapping it into some stranger's wallet and sucking up the fee yourself, doing it for free. Review the data. Check the legitimacy of your sources. But yeah, I think that this isn't good. If you can tie up a significant amount of the network with a malicious attack like this, it's rough. It's theoretical now, but just assume for a moment that the capacity of the network were to increase to, say, 1,600 Bitcoin. Meaning that the nodes on the payment channels will have roughly, more or less, 1,600 Bitcoin tied up in them. Suddenly the incentive to try and steal that money goes way the fuck up. And with the simplicity of this, well, I won't say simplicity, it seems like a rather complex and involved attack. But if you can make it worth it, I mean, really now, you can take a whole bunch of botnetted computers out there and mine Monero with them. What if you were to be attacking a Lightning Network payment channel or a series of payment channels with this type of attack? The possibilities are out there. We're not talking about things that are explicitly theoretical, because it's like all of the parts laying around for that nuclear bomb. It's like it's going to take more than maybe a toddler to put it together. Maybe a teenager will actually manage to achieve it. But if he's incentivized enough to put his fucking brain power to it, that's exactly what he's going to do. If there's enough incentive to do it, that's exactly what he's going to do. And this again, people say that, we're not going to get regulated out of it or whatever. This is the kind of thing that will require some sort of regulatory clarity being brought about into the Lightning Network and payment channel and off-chain bullshit. And this again is just a step. And by then, they expect that most of the users of Bitcoin will be using them off-chain and will be dependent upon such services. Again, the reason why you're not is the same reason why you're not using fucking IOTA right now. Their network, from what I understand, is still kind of stalled. I guess they put a patch out for their wallet, but nonetheless, this threat, I think, the threat that they were facing before that was causing them to get hacked, I think still exists. So, I don't know. But I think it will continue to exist because of their governance model. And with regard to Lightning Network, because it does have this threat, you require things like oracles and shit like that to be monitoring it. Well, again, those people are going to have to be licensed entities. If you read any of the descriptions of what an oracle will be doing, and then you read some of the regulation that FinCEN wants to put forward or has put forward, or at least some of the language that they've spoken about people that provide such services and how they currently apply such laws, regarding like money transmitting and shit like that. These people are serious. They do not want you to be able to compete with a bank. With Bitcoin on-chain transactions, you're not facing this risk because you're trusting the global network to include your transaction into a block. And if you're providing enough of a fee, that's probably going to happen. And unlike Poloniex, they can't just roll it back. Which I think that some Lightning implementations allow for two-way payment channels or some shit like that, or they are two-way payment channels by default or something. I would have to review and polish up on my knowledge about Lightning, and I'll be really honest with you, I've never even bothered with it. Because I've actually read the fucking money transmitter legislation. And when I read it, it doesn't describe mining. It doesn't describe you using your wallet for purchasing things retail. What it does describe is being a third-party intermediary for somebody that's wanting to do that and, move their liquidity quickly off-chain. Because you have to trust the person to actually fulfill. Or to not just take your fucking money and run with it instead of giving it to the intended party. Therein lies the custodial risk of Lightning Network. And that's one of the reasons why it is going to get regulated. And I can't tell you the number of people that I've dealt with on Twitter before they suspended my account, which from all accounts so far is appearing to be a permanent status, but hopefully I'll be able to get that changed. But given the way that I had been talked to by people online concerning this little business, the Lightning Network, they all say the same things. Oh, it's not custodial. In order for this to be worth doing, you got to be able to put up a fucking shit ton of Bitcoin. Like LNBIG is. He's got 25 nodes that he's hosting his funds on, which make up about 44% of all the liquidity on all of the fucking payment channels. So just imagine if somebody has enough money, half a Bitcoin, they could stall all 25 of those nodes for possibly up to a day. That's going to cost LNBIG a lot of fucking money. And I think there's also the possibility, as we reviewed in here, of the adversarial attacker being able to acquire the funds. Come on now. Why not just put a big sign on Lightning Network that says, fucking hack me. There's plenty of incentive in here. It's sad to me because this is exactly the kind of third-party risk that Bitcoin was created to avert. You don't need to entertain this bullshit on a proof-of-work currency like Bitcoin. But these people have intended to make you do that, and their way of doing it is forcing you to use Lightning, which invariably will become occupied by predominantly large legacy financial conglomerates. They're trying to narrow it down with regard to social media giant Facebook, and any kind of regulation that will limit Facebook's activity within Lightning or any other payment service providing will invariably impact you too. That's why they're begging for regulatory clarity, because they want to kick you the fuck out of it preemptively. We already kicked them the fuck out of it by having Bitcoin. Now they want to kick you back out of it and make you dependent on fucking Lightning Network channels that they are running the liquidity for. You have to put your Bitcoin in their wallet in order for you to be able to transact it, or at least afford to, because by then the transaction fees will be just humongous. These guys will be tying up millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in their payment channels, and the fees for those transactions are going to be fucking huge. It'll be within Facebook's interest or MasterCard's interest or Visa's interest to pay exorbitant fees. Why? Because it prices the block space out of your reach. That is the point. That has been the whole push for all the second layer bullshit, is to price you out of the ability to transact directly on the blockchain as Bitcoin was intended. And like I said, I've dealt with a lot of bullshit from that perspective. But I'll tell you what, due to the similarity in nature of the bullshit that I've been coming up against, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've experienced a lot of it from people in BSV too, where they've got their little mindset and they've got their little monopoly ideal, where they want to force the cryptosphere in a direction where it includes them no matter what you want to do. At one time there was talk of, doing altcoin transactions piggybacked on Bitcoin's network. And, atomic swaps via Lightning. And I'm sure that stuff works, and it works wonderfully and all that other shit. But it would retain for Bitcoin a dependence factor. And why would you want to do that? Why would you want to risk monetary value that you've got tied up in, say, Verge? Why would you want it tied up in one of these HTLC fucking high liquidity channels when you could be transacting it on chain and have it settled within 30 seconds? Why would you want to do that? That's just stupid. You got to trust that third party's not just going to gank your funds or limit where your transactions can actually go to. Maybe they don't like the people that you're trying to spend your Bitcoin with. Oh no, we don't like their values. We don't like their morals. They don't think the way that we like, so we're not going to allow you to do business with them. Oh shit, there went permissionless. You see where I'm going with this? There went censorship resistance. Oh, fucking out the window. Because my third-party payment services provider doesn't like who I want to do business with. What the fuck do you think that's going to make people do? It's going to make me transact in another coin. Because I'm not going to put up with that bullshit. If I want to do business with somebody, and they're willing to take the coin that I have, we're going to do some fucking business. And no indication of what that may be. I could be fucking selling them potatoes. They could be buying potatoes from me. I could be buying potatoes from them. I could be buying milk. I could be buying whole milk. Straight from the fucking udder. If it's within my risk tolerance to drink whole milk straight organically from the cow, instead of having to go to the store where it's been evaluated by the USDA before it's able to get up there on the shelf. If I'm willing to accept that risk, that there's nothing wrong with this milk that's coming directly from the cow, if the guy that owns the cow is willing to accept cryptocurrency in exchange for it, fuck yeah, we're going to do some commerce. But yeah. So, that's the whole point of doing on-chain transactions on global blockchain networks, consisting in ad hoc networks consisting of volunteers just like you and me. The whole point of having those is to be able to facilitate those transactions, regardless of where you are on the planet. And again, it's about getting permission, getting a position in place where somebody can look down on the rest of the universe and say, not you. Everybody else, but not you. You suck. I don't like you. It brings to mind the idea of mark of the beast, where, if you don't have the mark of the beast, you can't do any business. You can't buy food, you can't buy lodging, you can't buy clothing. You're just outcast. Well, that vision doesn't actually include the reality of economics. There are incentives. Everything, every modicum of civilization that you see, when you leave the door, the level of civilization that you experience, the level of civility, people are half decently nice to you on the road, they wave to you when you go by. That is all incentivized. There's incentive to do that. Because, if you act like an asshole, you live far enough away that, from quote unquote civilization, defined by walls and all that shit, that you got to watch your P's and Q's. You got to be a good neighbor. Because if you're not, you could be that guy that's stuck out in the middle of nowhere in your house during the time when nobody has electricity. There ain't nobody bound to help you out. Because you're not willing to help out anybody else. You're not being a good neighbor. That's the extent that socialism actually works. But when you start trying to put a federal badge on it and give it a gun, it doesn't work anymore. Because all of a sudden you change the power dynamic and the incentives behind the guy that has the badge. Suddenly he's the one that's really in control. He's the one determining the flow of products and goods and resources and all that other shit. And at what rate that's actually happening at. It's, perverse incentives. If you make regular commerce too illegal to conduct, it's going to become illicit commerce. And so you've increased the black market, or at least the volume of commerce that's occurring within it, because you won't let it happen out in the open without your fucking grubby little hands sticking in people's fucking wallets trying to gank their funds unduly. Bitcoin is a symptom of this. It is not to blame for this. You brought this upon yourselves. Gonna have to deal with it on our terms. How it presents itself to you and how you choose to participate in it. You want to be adversarial about it? Yeah, sure. But all you're going to end up doing is advertising yourselves as enemies to pretty much everybody else. And due to the nature of this technology, it's pretty much like an immune system, where if your power is too noxious to the rest of the fucking ecosystem, it's going to adapt and get around you and go beyond your ability to limit it. So the best policy, really, with regard to regulating cryptocurrencies, you want to regulate cryptocurrencies, you have to change your mindset. Rather than trying to, with your regulation, eliminate players and limit the innovation occurring within it, you need to shift your regulation to incentivizing best practices. And best practices not being paying your fucking taxes. Best practices being that you've got your miners operating and that you're orphaning very, very few blocks. You're really working efficiently with your hardware. You're doing your due diligence to make sure that in the area that you're in, you're mining profitably for yourself. There should be incentive to do that. Or at least minded towards expanding the capability to do that. So like with electricity production and food production, any kind of regulation that limits these things, I think that we should get rid of it. Same thing with communication. Anything that limits the capability of communication unless it's noxious to other capabilities of communication, I think we ought to eliminate it. So like the FCC, just get rid of it. No more licensing for ISPs. If you want to be on a registry, maybe there's somebody out there that's willing to do that as a service. Provide a registry for you to examine and compare. Because it would be within your interest to be looking for the best deal possible, right? And so maybe you're willing to cough up a nickel or two for the results that this person has taken the time to accumulate, and determine for yourself exactly where you want to put your effort and your money. Technology is here to liberate us. It is to liberate us from regular toil. But it is not without responsibility, and it is not without education, and it is not without a learning curve. There is no free lunch. You really have to dedicate something to it. You really have to have skin in the game. This is what makes the incentive model so very, very clear to you. And you won't get it by some sort of federal dictate to you. There's no Fed that can point at you and like imbue you with the knowledge of how to operate within this space. Invariably, regardless of what they tell you, they're going to be costing you opportunities and money. That's all it is. So again, the regulation should be create as much fucking electricity as cheaply as possible.